Hey everyone, it is Rolly, and today first of all, I wanted to wish everybody a happy Canada's Day, and on the 4th is Independence Day. So for anybody in the States, because we won't be on live, I wanted to wish everybody a happy Independence Day as well. But today is Monday Whispers Chat. So really excited to be here today. We missed last week because there was some glitches in terms of technology with one of our guests. So we are still going to have that Monday Whispers Chat. Just we're going to be rescheduling it at a different time. But today we have Denise, and so Denise is here with us. So Denise Frank is here from, and I am bumbling my words today. So it has been a it has been a holiday day for us, and so my brain is just not into like the groove, and it's 2 hours later than normal for me. So my brain is just kind of going like, oh, what are you doing at 9 o'clock at night? Um, so but I always keep it casual. So that's just where my brain's at today. So Denise is coming to us from Texas. And so Denise is a mom to 4 awesome kids. Dominic, Ezekiel, did I say that? Did I pronounce that right?
Dominique.
Yeah, Dominique and Ezekiel?
Yes.
Okay, good. Joshua and Niles. And she's a gorgeous grandma. So she's a Gigi. I love that. Gorgeous grandma. To Galaxy and DJ. And she's a high school teacher, high school English teacher, college writing tutor, published author, and contributing writer to Grace and Such, Real Black Love, and She United magazine. So her life passions are to motivate and encourage women to be the best version of themselves and to help bridge the gap between men and women so that they have a healthier, more meaningful relationships that last and stand the rest of time. So awesome. So super, super excited to have Denise on with us. And so, oh, there it is. I was trying to figure out where the live went. It was like, oh no, where'd it go? And my brother-in-law is on. Hey, Dave. So for those of you who are that are here online with us, let us know that you're here. And if you guys have any questions as we're going along, we'd love to be able to hear from you guys. But also, if you guys are catching the replay, hashtag replay and let us know that you guys are here. So that way there we can actually make sure that we actually come back and follow up on any questions or any comments that you guys may have. And so, yeah, so that's where we're at today. So welcome, Denise. So super excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited too. Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit more about yourself. Is there anything else from your description that we don't know about you?
Well, I am a domestic abuse survivor, and that has kind of shaped the path that my life went in. Growing up in it, swearing that I'd never live in it, but then being immersed in it in my previous marriage and overcoming it. And a lot of women think that that defines them.
Yeah.
And I want them to understand and know that that is not their final destination.
I love that. And I really love that you are able to share that with us because I obviously didn't know that from your description. So, so thanks for sharing that. So, now so our topic is changing your mindset. So how does that, how do the two kind of fit together in terms of defining yourself and being able to make those changes?
Um, they connect because in my marriage, my ex-husband and I were together for almost 20 years, between dating for 8 or being in a relationship for 8 and then being married for, I believe it was 12 and a half years. And I'd gotten to a very low, dark place. And the only thing that got me out of it outside of my faith was shifting my mindset, because I found myself in my journal writing, writing from a victim mentality and realizing that that victim mentality was keeping me stuck in a situation longer than I should have been there. And once I shifted my mindset, I started to see a different light, a different path, and I just went with it. And the last 7 years have been like a mind trip with what I've accomplished and overcome because of shifting my mindset.
So one of the things that you said is that you were in that you kind of were living in a victim mentality. So can you describe a little bit about what that means?
Yes, the victim mentality is when you blame everyone else for what's going on. In my marriage, it was all my husband's fault, although I was choosing to be a participant in it. Um,
True.
I wasn't aware that I was blaming, I was, oh, woe is me. Taking on that attitude, and why people would kind of shy away from me when they saw me coming, because I was always complaining about the situation and not doing anything to get out of the situation.
So now one of the things that that I see with people is that that's one of the parts that they find the hardest is being
Yes.
able to kind of shift out of that that blame out of that, and not to take away from, and I think that this part is really important for us to note, is that by not taking on that victim role doesn't mean that it's okay for people to be abusing us in any shape or form. So like that is, so if somebody is watching this and you're like, hey, just a minute, because I think that that part is, because that's one of the arguments that I will actually often hear from people is that
You're back. I see you.
hello, are you still there, Denise?
I'm here. I can see you. I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm not sure what it is that's going on. Denise, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello?
Can you, I'm assuming that you can't hear me.
Huh. I can see you and hear you. I can't hear you. What is going on? Okay, so I've just returned her back to the lobby, and we'll see if I can get her to come back on.
Okay, can you hear me?
Nope, we can't. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start over. So we'll be back for take 2. Hey everyone, we are back. So nothing is going to keep us down. We're going to just keep going. So away we go. So we are, I'm just trying to see if I can find the live to make sure that we actually are live. And but we're starting again. So I know that people, hopefully people who are actually that we're following earlier is going to see that we are back on over here. There we are. Okay, so we are live again. So I was just saying to Denise before we actually were able to get back to connected while we were waiting to get connected again, is that Mercury retrograde is happening on July 7th, and we are already in the shadow of it, and it's already wreaking some havoc. So, but that's okay, because we're just going to keep plugging away. So let's just, for those of you who are actually coming back, joining us now that weren't on the last live, is that I'm here with Denise Frank, who's actually going to talk about changing your mindset. And so we were talking about how it actually connected changing her mindset to the circumstances that she was in a domestic violence relationship. And so we were actually looking at correlating the two and how that actually worked. And so one of the things that I was saying when I was so rudely disrupted by Facebook is that I wanted to make sure that people knew that if you are in a domestic violent relationship, and one of the things that we're talking about is that you have control of being able to make changes in your life, and even when you are in a domestic violent relationship. And so by no means during this conversation are we saying that you are responsible for the other person's actions. You are only responsible for your own actions or inactions. And so I think that that's really, really important for us to point out, because I don't want anybody thinking, oh, okay, well, I'm in this domestic violent relationship, and so it's my fault, because we already have, when you're in that, in domestic violence, is that you you already are feeling that way because you're the offender is already making you feel that way. So we don't want anyone to think that that's what it is that we're talking about when we're actually talking about the victim role, or the victim circumstance. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, because I didn't want anybody to come back saying, hey, that's not true, because we are not responsible for somebody else's actions. We're only responsible for our own actions. So the air conditioning gets really hot and then it gets really cold, so I'm going to be doing my sweater on and off probably throughout. So anyway, I'm going to go back to you, Denise, and have you go back to when we were talking about the victim mentality. So what did you mean by that?
By victim mentality, I blamed my ex-husband for the things happening. I complained a lot, and I never fully took responsibility for me choosing to stay in it. But on the same token, I didn't know exactly how to get out of it. And my ex-husband had convinced me that he was the best that I could do, that, nobody would ever want me. So he used manipulation to keep me stuck. And that kind of contributed to me thinking, oh my God, it's his fault. I can't get out of it. I can't do any better. And just complaining about the circumstances.
And so how did things shift for you? So like, at what point were you able to start making that shift? You were talking about in the other video, you actually talked about how you were finding that people were kind of shying away from you, and people just didn't want to be around you. So how did that play out for you? How did things change in order to be able to change your mindset?
It was like a light bulb went off, and I knew that in order for change to happen, I had to accept the role that I played in staying in the relationship, and then deciding that if I wanted anything to change, I could only change what was in my control to change, and my mindset was within my control to change. And it wasn't until I sat down and started writing my book that God had been dogging me to write, because I've been carrying around the outline for it for years. And once I sat down and started writing it and going through the chapters, I realized that there was a lot, there were a lot of things within my relationship that I could have avoided if I were in a different mindset. And that even though my ex-husband was placing his limitations or his limiting beliefs on me, that was not necessarily the case. That the things he was telling me were not true. And I just had to make a decision to change the way that I thought about my marriage. And it was a painful process.
And it really is that painful process of being able to changing the way that we're looking at things, changing the way that we see things, to be able to make those changes. And you are very fortunate to have been able to do that. And not everybody can, not everybody
Exactly.
is able to see that. And so it's just really, really important for because it's not that people cannot do it. It's about being able to, people are not necessarily ready to make those changes.
Exactly.
Right. So, because it all has to do with our stage of readiness and where are we at in terms of that readiness. And so it's just, and so under any circumstance, there are no times when you can't make those changes. But one of the things that I think that is really important for us to be able to point out is there are resources available, at least in Canada and the US. I can't speak to any other countries because I don't know what other resources are out there in other countries, but because I do have some people from other countries that do follow Monday Whispers chats. And if you are from a different country and you do have some different resources, please share them. And if you are from Canada and the US, then please share some of the other resources that you have. I will put in the resources that are local to us, because obviously I won't know all the resources, but anybody else who's watching or sharing, please share those resources so that women do know where some of those resources are.
Yes.
So that they can actually get started. But again, in Canada, I can speak to the to our police stations. If you speak to your police station, they can help connect you with different resources as well. So, but just when you're ready to make those changes, if you don't know where to go, there are so many places that you can actually reach out to and ask, and be able to get the support that you need to be able to help leave those relationships.
Yes.
So, so what are some of the what was your aha moment? What was your awakening in terms of being able to?
The aha moment was I have a daughter, and I was teaching her that she needed to be respected and that she needed to be respected by men. And I wasn't living that out in front of her. And to add, and I don't want to say insult to injury, I graduated from college in 2010, couldn't find a job by 2012, and was in a very dark place, contemplating suicide. And it was my kids who, the thought of something happening to me and how that would traumatize them for the rest of their life. And the fact that I'm raising a daughter and teaching her something that I wasn't living by. So I had to make a decision. Either I was going to continue living the way that I was, or I was going to take a step in uncharted territory, because I had no idea what was going to happen. And we were being evicted anyway. So I packed up the 4-bedroom house that we had. Friends came and helped me put things in storage, and I took my kids to a shelter for 8 weeks. And it just took that step for doors to open that I had no idea were there. And it was I learned that in those, when we pray to God and we ask for things, we have to be very specific. Because when you're not specific, he will give you what you ask for in his way. But I'm thankful even in that I wasn't specific, because going to the shelter and sitting down with people who actually wanted to help me get back on my feet was very monumental in a lot of things that happened after that.
And those resources, like you said, going to the shelter, they are trained. They know the kinds of things that you need to be doing, and how to be able to take those steps. And oftentimes we see relationships that are people that are in domestic relationships, and like we're talking about women being abused, and that's because the statistics are higher. And I often get men that'll say, yeah, but I've been in these kind of relationships as well. And so it doesn't just happen to women, it does happen to men as well. And it also happens in same-sex relationships as well. And so so I think that that's something that's really important for us to note as well, is that yes, we are talking about women. Yes, we are talking about, like, that is what it is. In the statistics are a lot higher, and it is more challenging um, for women to be able to get out. And in Canada, it is a lot of Aboriginal women that are that have the most difficulty. But in the U.S., a lot of times the statistics are actually higher for Black women as well. I believe, right, Denise? Like, if I'm not mistaken, that is, the statistics are definitely higher within the minorities, and I think that that is something that is minority women is where the challenges are higher, and so I think that that is something that is really important for us to note as well. So, um, so what about the okay, so your daughter was definitely, and that is again something that we see often, is that it's our kids that kind of like get us back into the like, oh, I don't want my kids to live like that. Oh, I don't want my kids to experience that. Or something really bad happens to our children, and then that's when we finally decide to get out. So like there's a lot of kids play a huge role in those circumstances, and so being able to make those changes. Now, one of the things that that a lot of people tend to believe is that when somebody's in a domestic violent relationship, that it's oftentimes that it's people that are unemployed, that don't have any standing status in the community, that kind of thing. And I see you shaking your head. And so can you tell me a little bit more about that and how that played out for you?
Well, my ex-husband was for a long time the only barber in the town that we lived in, and he had very affluent customers. Between the two of us, because he owned his own business, I worked in the mutual funds industry as an assistant supervisor and then eventually as a school bus driver so I could stay home with my kids. And between the two of us, we were bringing in six figures. However, when you are with someone who doesn't know how to manage money, who did not have good examples for positive male-female relationships, and that goes both ways because I didn't know what it looked like either. A lot of things become normalized, and a lot of people didn't know what I was living in until I took my kids, until after actually we got out the shelter.
Yeah.
And they said, you know, we had no idea. A lot of women suffer in silence because they have kids. And I always told people, no one needed to know what was going on in my home because I needed to shield my kids from it in the public eye as much as I possibly could. And my game face was perfected because nobody knew. And a lot of women, like I said, they suffer in silence because either they're afraid of the backlash, they're afraid of being judged.
Yep.
They're afraid that their standard of living will be affected by it. So there are a lot of things that come into play, regardless of your race, socioeconomic group. It just so happens that, you know, poorer women, you know, live in it a lot longer.
Yeah.
Other women, you know, they have family members that eventually can coax them out of it. And then in my instance, like I said, it was my daughter. I didn't want her to one day call me a hypocrite because I was teaching her one way, but living another way.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. Either you stay there and you keep suffering. And I was dying a slow death on the inside. And my dad was afraid that I was going to have a nervous breakdown because I didn't want to be around anybody. I sat in the dark and I cried for hours. And he's the only person that knew what was really going on because nobody out on the outside needed to know.
Yeah. And that's that whole thing about that secrecy, right? So being able to, and I think that it's fabulous when women actually come out to be able to share their stories and being able to talk about how they've actually been able to overcome it, because the statistics are very high. And so, and even with all the education, it's still it's still very high, right? So it shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be as high as it is, but unfortunately it still is. And one of the things that I think that is really interesting is that we talk about women being able to come out of that victim mentality and being able to change their mindset. But unfortunately, sometimes society helps to push it back down. Oh, he's not that bad. Or there's other people that have it worse.
Yeah.
And especially when they don't see any physical bruising.
Yep.
And so like that's another whole other. So like if there's the verbal abuse and the financial abuse, the emotional abuse, right? So, and people don't see those things. So people kind of go like, well, no, he's not beating you.
Yeah.
And so one's not any better than the other, and one's not any worse than the other. And so it's just really, really important for us to be able to know that. And so, but kind of going back to that, changing your mindset. So what are some of the first steps that you actually took in being able to make those changes, Denise?
Well, when I sat down and was honest with myself about where I was, what needed to happen to make change, and not being afraid, because mind you, I'd left twice. I'd filed for divorce twice, and I was convinced to come back because things had changed, but they did not.
Yeah.
So I had to deal with myself on a very raw level and figure out which is why, if anyone watching does not journal, I would highly recommend that you start writing it, because when you start writing it, it becomes real because you're seeing it and it's not just in your head, and you have to deal with it. So while I was writing my book, I felt every chapter I wrote, and it made me deal with why I struggled with forgiveness, why I was insecure. And when I dug and dealt with where those things came from, I did a lot of crying while I wrote, because healing had to happen. And the only way it was going to happen is if I was honest and dealt with those things. I had no idea that my insecurity was rooted in the year I turned 9 years old and my father was removed from my home. My father, like any other dad, made mistakes, but I knew that he loved me and he was my protector. So when he wasn't there in my 9-year-old mind, I couldn't understand why he wasn't there, despite the fact that he and my mom didn't get along. And I thought their relationship was normal because it's what I saw.
Yeah.
But with him not being there at a time in a girl's life when she needs her father to show and teach her, I didn't have that. And I had to admit to myself that I had abandonment issues, and is why I kept going back.
Yeah.
Because maybe, what he's saying is right. Maybe he is the best that I can do. Maybe I really am crazy. Maybe nobody will really want me because I have kids. So those are things that we take on and accept, and we have to disassociate ourselves from. So you have to be honest with yourself. And in that honesty, because you're thinking it through, things are going to start to shift as you start convincing yourself of that the lies that you've been told are not true. Yeah. And it's hard. It's very hard when you've grown up in it and you've been immersed in it it was almost 20 years for me. It takes a lot. And like I said, it is so not easy because you don't know what lies on the other side.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen because you're taking a blind leap. And that's where my faith came in. And I had to cling to it, or else I'd still be in it.
So one of the things that I'm hearing you say is that you actually have to have some sort of faith, right? So you have to have something to be able to cling on to, or to be able to hang on to, that shows that you're not alone. And so that's something that I think is really, really important for people to know as well. So like whatever that higher power looks like for you. So some people find it in religion, some people find it in different types of spirituality, some people find it within. And I think that that's really important for everybody to be able to know, is that you're not alone. There's a universe of of energy that can actually help support you, and that you are worthy. And I think that that is something that is really an important message, is that despite what your abuser is saying, the person that you're in that relationship is saying, is that you are worthy. You are worthy um, to have greater in your life. You are worthy to be able to be able to move past the different things. And so I think that that's something that's really, really important for people to know as well that are watching, is that you're not alone. And even if you have not found that connection of faith, of being able to connect outside, is that there are people around you that if you actually reach out, there are people around you that get it, that know that you're in it. And but when you actually keep it behind closed doors and don't allow people to be able to know what it is that's going on, then it makes a huge difference. And one of the things that for me, when I was the in a domestic violent relationship, and I didn't realize that I was, at the time, until later, until I actually learned about domestic violence and what did it look like. Because domestic violence for me was that we saw it with a friend of mine. He never beat me. He never, they, which there was a lot of beatings in this particular relationship. And he actually, in this particular relationship, it was a murder suicide. And so so it's like, okay, well, my relationship is definitely not like theirs, and that kind of thing. And it wasn't until, so when but I was the type of person that would stand up for myself, and I would fight back, and it was like I was not going to. And so in my mind, it's like, oh, okay, well, I started the arguments, or I provoked it, or I did something from my end. And it wasn't until he actually had grabbed a hold of me and pinned me up against the counter that I kind of went like, oh, okay, I can't be in this relationship. But even still, even in that particular moment, I still felt that it was still, I provoked him. If I wouldn't have made him so angry, it
Yeah.
would not have happened, right? And so and that's again something that's really, really important for us to be able to identify, is that is not normal relationship behavior. We do not harm the people that we love. That is not the way that relationships are supposed to work. So I think that that's really, really important for us to note as well. And so, but being able to make those changes, and when you're able to recognize it, because I think that's one of the things that you said, is when you started journaling and started seeing the patterns and started seeing the things that were actually going on, that you're able to say, oh, wow, okay, that's not okay. And being able to make those changes. And one of the other things that you had said that I wrote down as well is that you said, I left twice. And statistics are, I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, I think it is 9 times before somebody may leave a relationship without returning. And so I think it's 9, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've actually kept track of those statistics, but it is several times. And so when each time that they leave, it gives them that much more strength, but at the same time, it also gives the abuser more leverage and more. But there's that pattern. So good for you for only having had to do it twice, right? Because each and every time they come back with like, I'm so sorry, it's never going to happen again, and that whole pattern of things, right? So so and then that makes it so that it's like, okay, because one of the things that I've heard you say as well is, okay, I guess I'm not crazy, right? So can you talk a little bit about how that works with your mindset in terms of that feeling crazy?
Well, because I'm a word nerd, I read a lot. So I read, a book that I would recommend to any woman going through it is The Emotionally Abused Woman by Beverly Engel, because that helped me think through what I was in, and help make sense of it in my mind. And also, like you stated, despite what's being told to you from by the abuser, you start to say, you know what? Well, no, that's not true. I'm not this and I'm not that. The more I read, the more I prayed, the more I wrote, my mind just started shifting. And then once I was out of it, I realized that there were things that I'd grown through that I was not aware that I had grown through. A good friend of mine told me that the things that I've overcome in such a short period of time, most would not uh, go through or accomplish in a lifetime, because I was determined not to be another statistic and to be that voice for women. So the more positivity I ingested, for lack of a better term, the more my mind shifted. The last 7 months, I begin every day with a motivational speech from YouTube, anywhere, and I look for the longer ones so that way I can listen to them while I'm getting ready. And once they end, if it's like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, I listen to positive affirmations. So I'm constantly pouring positivity in, so that way if anybody comes and tries to speak contrary to that, I know better.
Yeah.
And because I know better, when men come into my life, I can spot certain things right away. So it's like, okay, yeah, no, that's not going to work for me, because I'm not going back there again. And a lot of women get stuck in, well, oh my God, I'm out here, I'm by myself, I need to have somebody, because, and you don't, in order to attract a whole, and I mean, and let me preface this by saying we all come with baggage,
Yeah.
because I'm by far perfect. I'm still learning a lot about myself. However, it takes two people that are in the right frame of mind, that are in a healthy frame of mind, that come together to help each other work through their stuff. Because it was through subsequent relationships that I learned additional things about myself in other areas that I needed to shift in to continue growing as a person. So, and also surrounding yourself with like-minded people, because if you still have the same negative people in your life that are telling you, girl, he's not that bad, at least you got a man, you should do this because somebody's got it worse off than you do, like you stated, you're going to continue going back into those situations. And until you make changes within yourself that are positive and that are healthy, you're just going to continue going through a cycle of bad relationships. And eventually you're going to get to a point where you just fall flat on your butt.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that. My next relationship, I'm praying, will be the last one, because I'm at a point in life now where there's nothing that can shake me. And some people view my positive outlook as a problem or false, because there's no way that somebody can be that positive and when you make it a lifestyle and you are very proactive and pouring positivity into your life, when the negative people come, you have no time for them. And they know not to come, because I will cut them out quick. I will not entertain them, because like you said, the energy in the universe, we put energy out, and the same energy we put out, we get back.
Yeah.
So I think I repel negative people, which is a good thing.
Now, one of the things that doesn't mean that nothing bad ever happens in somebody who's being positive and has that positive outlook. It doesn't mean that bad things don't happen. And I think that that's one of the things that I often see with people, is that they'll often think, okay, well, if I stay positive, then nothing bad happens to me. So then and then when something bad happens, they're like, oh, well, obviously this didn't work for me. And they kind of step back.
Yeah.
But that's not what that changing your mindset means. It doesn't mean that, hey, Jess, it doesn't mean that people, that are feeling positive or that have a positive outlook on life doesn't have, like, people still die around them, people still get sick, people still lose their jobs. There's still so many things that can potentially still happen in people's lives. And that's universe stuff. Like, we have no control over a lot of that stuff, but we have control over how we look at it and how we're actually going to move through it. And doesn't mean that you can't feel depressed for a period of time, and it doesn't mean that you can't worry about some of the things that are going on, but being able to kind of shift it and giving yourself a short timeline, right? So so somebody who's had somebody pass away, you're not going to be like, oh, okay, well, I can change my mindset on it and I'm going to be happy, and it doesn't matter that I just lost somebody. And we still have to go through that grieving process. And so at no point is Denise saying that you have to just, okay, well, just be happy. Everything's good. So long as you're happy, everything is perfect and there's nothing that's going to happen in your world. That's not the way that it works. And that's not what changing your mindset means.
No. And I think people need to understand that when they go through stuff and you are taking steps to change your mindset, allow yourself to feel what you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Rolly said, death comes. Set a time frame for grief. Don't get stuck in it, because if you get stuck in it, that can take you right back to square one, where everything is just bad and nothing good is ever going to happen to me. You can't get stuck in it. And I think that's the misconception that people have, that when they're in it, they have to stay in it because bad things. I have bad days. It's just all in how I choose to handle it. For me, my Zen place is the gym. And I know that if I don't go to the gym, I'm not going to be nice to be around, because that is my way of releasing all that stuff, all that negative energy. So you have to find a way to help yourself process it that's going to make sense to you, but also allow you to keep growing through the process instead of getting stuck. Because too many people get stuck because they think, oh, this is just how my life is gonna be, and that's not it at all. You have control over that, and you have to use that for good instead of getting stuck in the negative. Because I mean, where I am now in comparison to where I was 7 years ago, like night and day. 10 years ago is like night and day, and it's all because of how I choose. Instead of, and this goes back to the victim mentality, instead of choosing to see things negatively, I look for the lesson in everything. Because in looking for the lesson, I'm growing as a person. And again, that's going to change the way that I think about things that happen. Yeah, I had a crappy marriage. Yes, I dealt with every level of domestic violence that a person can deal with, but I looked for a lesson in it so I wouldn't repeat it. And that's the important thing. And that helps you keep that positive mindset, when approaching anything in life.
And that is so important for us to be able to do, is change it, is being able to take a look at those life lessons. And I know that, and again, one of the arguments that I sometimes hear from people is that people will say, okay, but what am I learning with this particular loss or this particular situation that's happening? And so there are some times that we may not be able to see what that lesson is right at this particular moment. So I had someone who had experienced a very, not that one loss is worse than the other, but in this particular case, the person had actually had a very, a situation that the loss was extreme and very difficult for them to be able to deal with. And then another situation happened, and then they had another loss. And so while they were still grieving and while they were still dealing with the other loss, and it's like, okay, well, what lesson am I learning? And so now this person actually shares her experience. She shares the way that she was able to deal with. And it's not that she's done grieving, because there's still some things about it that are going on, and she still misses the people that were around, but it allows her to be able to. And so that was the lesson. That was the lesson that was in it, is how can she help someone else be able to go through it? How can she help someone else deal with it? And it doesn't mean that we always have to, like, if there's a situation that's going on, it doesn't mean we always have to teach someone else. But oftentimes that's one of the things that I see is that, which is one of the reasons why I love doing group work. And so most of my programs are group oriented, because we all get to give a little bit of our own experiences and how something worked for us and how it actually impacted us. And so, and here you are being able to share with everybody who's viewing. I've got 1,800 people on my page, and then however many people you're going to be seeing it, plus the people that I share it to my own personal, into my group. And so, like, there's all these different people, and somebody out there is going to have heard something that was said today in this viewing,
Mhm.
that they're going to go like, oh, that's what I need to know. Oh, that's what I need to be able to do. And there's no right way and there's no wrong way of being able to do this. It's about being able to, like you said, what you put in, you get out.
Mhm.
And so, and that's the whole purpose, I think, of what it is that you're saying in terms of changing your mindset.
And that has, I mean, and it's true because it goes back to what you were just saying about pain, and going through things. I remember one of my pastors back in Pennsylvania, he said that the things that we go through, the pain that we experience, isn't our pain to hold on to. That you never know who you might help just by sharing your pain.
Yeah.
And I've written about my life. I've been very transparent on my Facebook page about it. And I became a motivational person without trying to, because of changing my mindset and not allowing situations and circumstances and people to define me as a person. And it didn't happen overnight. It took time, it deliberate work. And like I said, and I will stress, it is not easy. You will cry, you will get mad, you will get frustrated, because when I was writing my book, I'm a writer since I was a teenager. Have never had writer's block until I got to chapter 2 on forgiveness and dug into what forgiveness really means and how you give someone else power when you don't forgive them.
Yeah.
They don't need to know that you've forgiven them, but you have to forgive them. I had 30-day writer's block for 30 days and had to deal with forgiveness for 30 days before I could move past it. And I was just dumbfounded once, and I knew that I'd shifted because I was able to get to chapter 3 without even knowing that I was writing chapter 3, because
Yeah.
I dealt with forgiveness. So you have to be patient with yourself on the journey, and it's not for the faint of heart. But that doesn't mean that you allow fear to hold you hostage somewhere where you should not be, where you're not respected, where you're not loved,
Yeah.
where you're not cherished or adored. And by staying in it, you're really not honoring yourself. You're not loving yourself.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I was in a very low place. And it wasn't until my daughter, and I'm just hoping that I don't get emotional. It wasn't until my daughter walked in my closet and said, "Mom, your clothes don't look feminine. You're wearing guy clothes," because I would be criticized and accused of trying to dress sexy for other people when I really wasn't. So to avoid that conversation or argument, I just started wearing oversized clothes. That way nobody could see anything unless I was at the gym. And when she told me that, that just made my heart sink, because I was not honoring myself. And in not honoring myself, I wasn't showing myself love. I wasn't showing myself respect. I wasn't living my authentic life. And that's typically what happens in those situations. You get lost in it. And the only way to come out of it, and it takes baby steps, is to start shifting your mindset. And it might be as simple as listening to your favorite hymn, or like I said, the motivational speeches that I listen to on YouTube, the I am affirmation that I listen to after, and that's an hour long, and repeating them, because it takes 21 days to create a new habit. So it'll take 21 days to start shifting your mindset. So, and you cannot be afraid of it, because And that's a whole other topic, but fear is paralyzing if you allow it to be.
And so, and those things are like really, really important. And so if you can, because you were talking about, so some people are like, okay, well, I can't listen to them or whatever during the day. So then listen to them at nighttime,
Yes, when you're
right?
going to sleep.
When you're, and let it play through and
Yes.
allow it to like close off or whatever. So like, one of the things that I do, and it drives my husband crazy, but he tolerates it because he loves me. But one of the things that I do is that I have an Alexa or like an Amazon thing in my room. And so it's like, okay, play, and whether it's Audible or whether it is Spotify or whatever, it's like open it up and resume whatever it is that was going on. And then I set a sleep timer that allows it to, so that's one of the things that I do. Like I have my normal routine that I actually do before bed. And then I listen to the different motivational things that are relaxing. Like obviously I'm not listening to anything that's going to like make me up and dance and that kind of thing, but like it allows it to be able to kind of go through. And so whether it, like, and it doesn't matter what it is, whatever it is that works for you, whatever sounds it is that works for you, whatever words it is that works for you, there are so many out there that you have access to so many. And if there's nothing that works for you, then record your own.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
so like, that's like really, really like you can make your own. You don't have to listen to someone else's.
So Wayne Dyer is one of my favorite. His I Am, and I love the way that, and it's like 50 some odd minutes, and it's for you to actually fall asleep to while you're telling yourself, I am this, I am that, because the I am statement is so powerful. And
Yes.
after you convince yourself of it and you start thinking about it when those negative thoughts or negative people crop up, it makes it so much easier to just to go through life and to deal with things that come up.
Yeah.
And another thing that I started listening to, you said you have your Alexa list. I started listening to, and I'm not exactly sure how. It might have been Jess that got me started, but solfeggio frequency music. And I learned because I listened to a 28-minute playlist that purged a lot of stuff because I cried for the entire. It wasn't 28 minutes. I lied. It was like 2 hours or an hour, but I cried the entire time and I couldn't stop because I was purging so much stuff. And people don't understand that music, the frequency of it, does have a positive or negative effect on you.
It does. It is, and music is so powerful. And music is actually used for healing. It's used for healing. It's used for celebration. And the vibrations are different for each one that you're actually dealing with. And so like, so it's just, music definitely is very incredible. So one of the things so I've actually started to write book recommended, but I didn't catch who the author was. So The Emotionally Abused Woman by
Beverly Engel.
Oh, Beverly Engel. Okay. So I wanted to.
And then there's a book by Marianne, what is her name? She wrote A Course in Miracles. I'd have to look it up because I have it and I can't, her last name eludes me. But that was another one to help boost my self-confidence as a woman. And as a man thinketh, he is. And I have to look for that author too. But that was another one.
Well, and you can always put it into the into the comments and stuff as well. But it's just like really, really important for us to be able to share those resources. So if you are listening and you have different resources that work for you, please share them.
Mhm.
Share them so that and the other people who are actually watching have that opportunity to be able to hear some of the things that work for you. And even if you're still in that process, right? So it doesn't mean that you may not necessarily have gotten out of the relationship at this point, or that you, but being able to make those shifts and making those changes, every little tiny step that you take, and that's one of the things that that you said, Denise, is those baby steps. And I think that that is extremely, extremely important for people to know, is that there are baby steps. And every little step that you take, every little action that you take, and even if all it is listening to Wayne Dwyer, or listening to some motivational speaking, or connecting with other women who have that you're able to connect with, or that you I can't even think of what word that I'm thinking. It's just completely eluded me. But whatever word that was, that resonates. Oh, there you are. The word, so resonates, right? So so whatever it is that resonates for you, and there are so many different ways of being able to do this, that doesn't mean that every step that Denise took is going to work, or the length of time that she took is going to work. Sometimes for some people it's going to be faster, sometimes it's going to be slower.
Mhm.
And it's just about being able to, like, where does it fit for you, and how can you actually take those steps
Mhm.
of being able to make those changes. And I think that that's extremely, extremely important for us to be able to know as well, is that we are not the same as everyone else. We are all different, and each and every one of us have that opportunity to be able to make those changes. We just need to figure out, how does it fit for us? How does it fit for us, so that we can actually take those steps? And there's tons of things on YouTube. There are different things with using Google, the Google machines, or the Amazon machines, whatever it is that you have. There are so many different things and resources that are out there that, and we're talking about people that have been in domestic violent relationship, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the relationship that you've been in. So whether you've had past traumas, whether you're living through things right now, like, it doesn't matter what it is that's going on. There's just different ways of being able to change that mindset. There's different ways of being able to live your true authentic self, and no one knows what that is
But you,
except for you.
yeah.
So I think that that is extremely, extremely important. So is there anything that you wanted to make sure that we talked about today that we haven't talked about, Denise?
Um, well, no, just with the whole mindset thing. I was listening today. One of my favorite motivational speakers is Billy Alsbrook, because he is the passion that he exudes when he speaks. Just speaks to me. I listened to one of his motivational speeches today twice. Which is really good. Um, and you just have to know that when you make a decision to change your mindset, you have to be prepared for the people that are going to fall off. And
Yeah,
when they start falling off, that just means that their purpose in your life is over. Stop trying to hold on to people who no longer fit you, because as you continue to grow, your circle of influence is going to change.
yeah,
And the people that you once thought were your homies, you'll find that they're stuck back there because they're afraid to take the step, and they're not going to understand or respect the direction that your life is going. And that's okay.
yeah,
That's perfectly okay. There are people that were with me back then that are not with me now. And you know what? The one thing that Billy Alsbrook said was, you learn to be by yourself sometime, because not everyone is going to, not everybody's for you. And
yeah,
when you're going through what he calls the struggle in your mind, because your mind is a battlefield, um, you have to know that sometimes you have to get by yourself and be quiet. You don't need to have a bunch of noise around you, because that's going to distract you from where you're trying to go, and whatever lessons you need to learn, and whatever mental shifts need um, to happen.
yeah,
And you can't allow fear to keep you in places where you know you've got no business being, because it'll paralyze you.
Yeah.
And I used to be afraid to be by myself. And growing through my process, I've gotten very comfortable with my own company, because you can't heal when you have a lot of noise and chaos and people around you. Sometimes you need to be by yourself and get quiet so you can hear that inner voice speaking to you. So don't allow fear to rule, because that's a negative thing.
Yeah.
And you keep acting fearful, thinking fearful, what's going to happen? You're going to get more situations that require fear to feed it.
Yeah. And one of the things that I like that you actually pointed out is like kind of being okay with yourself and your own company and being able to enjoy that. And one of the things that I know that people that will come up to me and say, yeah, but you're not single. But even when I was, right? So like, cause I'll make that statement of like, it's okay to be by yourself. And it's like, but you're not single. And I was like, no, you're right. I'm not, based on the rate, like where I'm at this point, but I am still okay with being with myself. I am still okay with, so even though I have a partner, I am still able to like be okay with myself and do my own thing and make my own decisions. And like, there are some decisions obviously that we need to make together, but for the most part, I can make any decision that I want to make. If I want to go and do a girls' night out, so long as it's not impacting family stuff, I can go and do that without having to worry about like, is he going to be okay with that decision? Is that going to be so? And if I want to just be able to just go off by myself, and then I'm able to do that as well, like whatever it is that I need to be able to do. But I also have that same respect for him if he wants to be able to do those things as well, because it's important for us to be able to be in that quiet, be without having to worry about what other people are thinking or what other people are doing. And one of the other things that you had said is that those people that actually drop off, sometimes those people are not friends. Sometimes those people are family members.
Yes.
And sometimes we need to let go of those relationships, those familial relationships, because they're not in the right space for us. And so that is, I think, what probably one of the hardest that I have with clients is that when we talk about like these healthy relationships, and sometimes it's those family ones that we actually need to either set some very, very strong boundaries around, or be able to cut them out of your life. And people are like, oh, but this is my family. Family's everything. And yes, family is everything to a degree. To a degree, right? So
Yes.
if it's not healthy for you, then we need to make those changes sometimes. And that is a very difficult thing to do. So so I think that is really important. So you and I could probably talk for hours on this, I think, because there are so many more aspects to all of this that, and we've only just kind of touched the surface. And so I think that it would be really, so like continuing this discussion in the chat section, like continue this discussion with other people. Share this video if this is something that actually resonated for you. And I'm also going to be uploading it to my YouTube channel as well. So like there's different ways of being able to share this, because I think that these conversations are really important. And like I said, I prefaced, and I don't remember if it was in this video or the last video. So on YouTube, I'm actually going to take both of them and put them together before I put them on YouTube, just so that people can kind of get an idea of like both parts of the conversation. But I think that we were pretty good at making sure that whatever we did talk about in the first one, we did kind of preface in here, but just in case. But like just really important for us to be able to know that, yes, we've been talking about women and domestic violence. Yes, we've been talking about male and female relationships. And we've talked about different ways of being able to do this, but it's not just one particular way. And I think that that is really important. So if something in this conversation triggered you, then take a look at that. Write it out in a journal. If you are not in a certain, if you're not in a safe place to be able to keep a journal, write it out anyway and tear it up or burn it, right? So being able to get it from your brain to the paper, like so from
Yep.
and not necessarily typing,
Right.
like from,
You have to
'cause it
write it.
really, there's a psychological, and I don't know, remember what the name of the study is, but there's a psychological study that shows that if you go from whatever's in your brain through to your hand to write out, it
Yep.
makes a huge difference in terms of healing and in
Yes.
terms of being able to process things. It is much different than the computer. I don't know what the difference between the computer and the hand is, but it's just really important for you to be able to go from your head to your to paper. Some people will say, well, I can't write for different reasons, whether it's because they can't spell or whatever. It
Doesn't
doesn't really
matter.
matter. It's being able to just get it from
Yes.
your head. So like the process of it still happens. So it doesn't matter if you can't spell. It's not about spelling mistakes. It's not about grammar. And it's just, I always refer to that as mind dumping, right?
Yes.
So you get from your
That's
mind
exactly
to
what
the
it
paper,
is.
right? So just get it from your brain out
Yeah.
onto paper, and it makes a huge difference. And so that's, so yeah, so
And can I say one more thing?
absolutely.
Because you said that single people say, but you're not single. I'm
Yeah.
single. And in the 7 years I've been divorced, I've had 2 relationships and a situationship. And I will tell you, I'll tell single people this: being single is okay. You have to be comfortable in your singleness in order to function properly and healthfully in your relationship. Because, like Rolly said, she goes to do her thing, her husband can go do his thing, as long as it doesn't impact family time. And that's true, because if you can't be by yourself and be okay with it and be secure in it, you're not going to have, it's not going to be a positive relational experience at all. At all.
Well, and that kind of takes me back to a few weeks ago. I had a workshop that I did, and where I actually went is that like there's no cell service, there's no connection, like there's like completely nothing. So I went, but I actually went and stayed. So the Friday evening, I went out by myself, stayed by myself that night, and then did the workshop, and then stayed by myself the Saturday night, and then went home on the Sunday. And before even going there, my dad's like, "You're gonna go all by yourself?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. Well, what are you gonna do all by yourself? Whatever it is that I want to do. Like, I don't have to please anybody. I get to do whatever I want. I can eat what I want. I can sleep however long that I want. I can, like, whatever. I get to just be with me and enjoy that time with me and that quiet and have nothing.
And you
And
need
so
that.
we don't always have the luxury of being able to do that. That doesn't happen often that I'm able to do that, but it's just really important for us to be able to, like, so even if all it is just taking 15 minutes or going for a walk or going to the gym, right? So whatever it is that we need to do, it's just being able to just be with that space, right? So being in that moment, being in that space, and being able to be comfortable with ourselves. And so, so my relationship hasn't always been positive. We've had some ups and downs, and we've had some different things that have gone through, because that is what relationships are. And so it's just really important for us to be able to, but I know that I'm okay with me, and I know that I'm okay with being able to move forward on my own and do the things that I need to do for myself, or that I want to do for myself. And so just really important for us to be able to kind of make sure that we put ourselves first.
You have to.
And that is really, really challenging. And that's one of the mindset changes, right? So
Yes, because the same friend told me, because I was consumed with being a mom and being a wife, that I forgot about Denise the person. And she said, Denise, you're more than a wife. You're more than a mother. You're a woman. You're a person with goals and dreams. And it's okay, because that, if God put it in you, it's there for a reason.
Yeah. And so, and that's really important. So again, Denise, I want to thank you. And like I said, we can probably talk, because we've only just touched the surface. There is still so much more in this. And so, so join in the conversation. If you're watching this, share this video if you think that that would actually be helpful for just, let me try that again. If that would be helpful for someone else. And I will on the YouTube channel. I will combine the two together. I can't do that on Facebook, but I'll definitely do that through the YouTube channel. But just definitely share this conversation, because there are other people out here that do need to hear that message. There are other people that need to hear that they're not alone, and that this message is that there's so many more things about this. So. And I can hear, I love listening to the sound of your little people in, I don't know how old the person is.
4.
Four?
My grandson, he's 4.
Your grandson? And like, I could hear the little voice, and I'm like, oh, that sounds so awesome. I love little voices.
And also, if there are viewers who want to message me. My master's degree is in behavior psychology, so I learned how to look at behaviors and break them down. So if you have questions, feel free to ask. I'm not embarrassed by any of my life experience. So
awesome. And like I said, if you have something that you want to be able to share, please share.
yes.
And let other people, so that people can actually know that they're not alone, because I think that that is really important. And breaking that silence, I think, is probably the first step of being able to change your mindset and being able to be safe. So I will talk to you all later, and thank you so much for joining us a little later. And for those of us in my neck of the woods, it's 10:15 and way past my bedtime. So, so thanks everyone. We should be back on for 7 p.m. unless something happens for next week. But I will talk to everybody later. Bye for now.